I'm going to ask my colleague Carole Patrick to join me on screen now. Good morning, Carole. Hi, Carole. So Carole's going to kick us off this morning by talking a bit about investment in Champions Boards, not just financially, but with commitment, time and an open mind. Carole, I'll let you say more.
Thanks for that introduction, Mari. I'm Carole. I'm the Director for the Young People's Programme here at the Trust, and it's brilliant to see that so many of you have taken time out from your busy schedules to join us this morning. We really appreciate it. We'd love to hear your comments and your questions throughout the session, as Mari mentioned, so please do use the chat function at the bottom of your screen and join in. I've written loads of versions of this speech because Champions Boards are really close to my heart. It just feels like a real privilege to be saying some opening words this morning, particularly looking at the programme and seeing all the great contributors who are joining us today. Champions Boards are special, that's the bottom line, and they've been a huge part of our journey here at the Life Changes Trust. Our mission is one of transformation. We know that children and young people who are care experienced still face far too many obstacles to achieving their full potential. Champions Boards obviously can't address all of these obstacles, but in the local authority areas that have really embraced the Champions Board approach, policy and practice is improving, and there are encouraging signs of those wider cultural shifts. The Promise has set out an inspiring vision for the care of children, young people and families in Scotland. The independent evaluation that you'll be hearing about today is a tool which can be used to make the case for the role of Champions Boards in helping Scotland to keep that promise. Champions Boards will continue to evolve and develop beyond trust funding, but they will need other cheerleaders and supporters as our particular chapter comes to a close. Some local authorities and health boards have already stepped up, and that's brilliant, but we'll need more public sector partners to recognise the value of a relatively small level of investment in Champions Boards if the vital work is to continue. So my plan this morning is to do a little bit of scene setting and then hand over to the really important folk who are making things happen in Champions Boards across the country. The voice of young people with care experience is really important to us at the Trust, and of course it's central to the Champions Board approach. Throughout this webinar, we'll be offering a platform for this voice. The most powerful thing that any of us can do is take the time to listen, properly, deeply, without distraction, and reflect on what we hear. While listening, maybe you could ask yourself, what can I do today, tomorrow, next week to make a difference to young people's lives? For us at the Life Changes Trust, reflecting on the evidence of our funded work since 2013, one of the key pieces of learning that stands out is the value of relationships in creating better lives. Of course, this isn't exactly a new discovery. Research has long shown the positive impact of relationships on young people. However, the evidence from the independent evaluation into the Champs Boards shows that the benefits of working relationally are two-way and can be profound. You'll hear testimony from staff working in boards and from corporate parents who will explain how Champions Boards have helped them to grow personally as well as professionally as they have built relationships with young people. By getting out from behind the desk, connecting over food, taking part in fun activities and tapping into creativity, people with strategic and operational responsibilities can reconnect with the values and aspirations that they had when first coming into their profession. When this happens, care experience is no longer an abstract concept. Understanding deepens and respect grows for the resilience, the selflessness, the determination and energy of young people who want to change things for the children and young people coming behind them. And maybe more importantly, the power balance starts to shift. Those with strategic responsibilities recognise the importance of acknowledging their power and letting some of it go. This is the real magic of the Champions Board space. At the Trust, when we first started to think about investing in Champions Boards, we believed that investing in young people with care experience themselves was a fundamental element of creating long-term, sustainable impact. We wanted to strengthen their voices, tap into their leadership potential, and show them love and trust, whilst also growing the network of supportive allies around young people. We understood that the future is always uncertain. Although this was before COVID times, so we might have actually underestimated the degree of uncertainty that we would be facing. But viewed through a hopeful lens, uncertainty creates possibilities. We believed it was possible that young people could lead, and you'll be hearing from some of those inspiring leaders today. Champions Boards represented an opportunity to invest in a different way of working. We've lots of terms now for engaging with people and trying to develop services and supports that better reflect their needs and aspirations. We might talk about co-production, co-design, or leading by lived experience. I would suggest that the language that we use to describe this process is less important than the recognition that for any social change to be sustainable and meaningful, we need to respect one another's common humanity and commit to collective, inclusive effort. In other words, we need to do with people, not do to them. This was all work without a blueprint or a roadmap, but what people did have was hope, underpinned by a belief that children and young people could have their needs met and their aspirations fulfilled if everyone, children and young people themselves, Champions Board staff, corporate parents, and people in partner organisations worked together on a shared vision. The Trust wanted to play its part too, which meant we needed to fund flexibly and relationally, with a focus on people rather than outcomes. We needed open minds and willing hearts. The independent evaluation report tells a story of Champions Boards across Scotland that's honest. It shows that there are no shortcuts. To genuinely transform the lives of children and young people who are care experienced, to keep the promise, corporate parents must create environments where long-term relationships with young people are not only possible, but actively encouraged. This provides the foundational platform to support participation. We can't kid ourselves. Without relationships, the engagement is tokenism. The Trust has always believed that young people themselves have to be the judge of success. As the evaluation shows, Champions Boards have multiple impacts on staff, on corporate parents, on policy and practice, and on wider culture. But first and foremost, boards exist for children and young people who are care experienced. Seeing clear evidence that young people are growing in confidence, developing new skills, accessing more opportunities, taking up leadership roles, and becoming more aspirational for their future highlights the value of investing in this work. As Scotland takes steps to implement the UNCRC, Champions Boards offer insight into what it takes to truly realise rights for children and young people who are care experienced. Of course, working on long-term social change is demanding. It's crucial that people engaged in this work have strong relationship networks and a sense of community to hold them steady and maintain motivation. The Trust has invested in a National Champions Board network, as Mary mentioned, as a means of supporting relationships and fostering peer support across regional boundaries. Young people and Champions Board staff value this space. We've been lucky to have an independent facilitator for the network, Bobby Jones, who will be joining us later. And this has been important to us as a funder. The network has to belong to Champions Boards, not to the Trust. As an independent facilitator, Bobby has consistently brought the right values of curiosity and openness, acting as a coach and a cheerleader where necessary, but always encouraging people to discover and tap into their own power. The Champions Board approach has had significant impact on policy and practice, making improvements across thematic areas such as education, housing, employment, health and justice. But whilst it's obviously important to be able to point to progress in terms of policy and practice, young people rightly expect to see action. The evaluation shows that done well, Champions Boards are more than just forums focused on planning services and making decisions that affect children and young people. Champions Boards are a way of being. And in this respect, there are important connections between Champions Boards for young people who have care experience and dementia-friendly communities, which the Trust has also funded. In both Champions Boards and dementia-friendly communities, people who have previously been excluded from our communities have found allies. They've built connections and become influential in a variety of ways. Through changing their own personal world, they've begun to change the world around them. This is transformational territory. We often think of transformation lying in the big-ticket policy changes, maybe the creation of a new national care service or the implementation of new legislation on children's rights. And of course, these things matter. We need to pay attention to the whole system and understand the context if our actions are to make a difference. Government, both national and local, has a key role to play in signalling priorities and targeting resources. But sometimes whole system approaches can have the unintended consequence of making people feel powerless. Within Champions Boards and DFCs, to quote from the amazing Patti Smith, people have the power. It takes time for young people to genuinely recognise and own their power, but by spending time with them, listening to them with both head and heart, being ambitious for them, employing them and investing in their future, everyone involved in a Champs Board is recognising that power needs to be more equally distributed if our communities are to become more inclusive places. And as the lines between professional and personal soften and blur, individual actions become more and more compelling. If we put all of these individual actions together, we create a powerful ripple effect, ultimately keeping the promise that's been made to children, young people and families, and creating better lives. Thank you so much for your attention. I'm going to hand back to Mamie now.